Hello, everyone. My name is Tanika Mehra, and welcome to Wharton Tech Talks. Today, we have a very special guest with us, someone who's played a very pivotal role in my own career journey. Jacqueline Cheong, co-founder and CEO of YC-backed startup Artie, is joining us today. Jacqueline kickstarted her career on the software equity research team at Bank of America, where she was my very first manager before continuing her impressive investing career at Balyasny. I am beyond excited to have her here today to share with us her incredible experiences and fascinating journey into entrepreneurship. So, welcome, Jacqueline. Could you share a little bit more about your background and the inception of Artie?
Yeah. Thanks for having me. So, like you mentioned, my background is in finance. I started doing software equity research at Bank of America and then transitioned to investing in software companies at a hedge fund called Balyasny. The inception of Artie really starts with my co-founder, who's also my husband. His name is Robin. And it's one of the classic startup beginnings where he was just trying to find a solution like this to solve a problem that he had at his previous company. He explored various tools. They didn't fully satisfy his requirements. And then he decided, I'll just architect it myself. And while he was doing all of this, he realized, wow, it's actually really hard to build a really robust, reliable, and fast streaming pipeline to move data from production databases like Postgres to a data warehouse like Snowflake. And once you build it, you then have to actively maintain it, which is not fun and not something that engineering teams wanted to do either. But at the same time, this was like a very useful solution that could benefit a lot of companies. We were sort of like, okay, what if we built a SaaS solution where you could deploy this in like 10 minutes and then it's set it and forget it? That seems valuable. Like maybe people will pay for it. And that's how it all started.
That's incredible to hear. And innovation, born out of necessity is always essential. And could you just share with our audience, what exactly Artie does? Maybe for a non-technical audience, what data replication and data streaming entails.
Yeah. So in short, we help companies move their data from databases to data warehouses or data lakes. So a classic example is moving data from Postgres into a data warehouse like Snowflake. And we do it in seconds instead of batch processes that take 15 minutes, 1 hour, several hours, or even you can do it overnight.
Nice. So what is the unique problem that Artie is trying to solve today that other platforms can't do?
Yeah, so most data integration solutions are batch-based, which is a whole different architecture and solves for a complete different use case. If we're just looking at CDC streaming solutions, there's just no end-to-end complete solutions out there. What it looks like is if you wanted to build your own streaming pipelines, you typically have to stitch together maybe 3 to 4 different components, including things like Debezium and Kafka or a PubSub. And then you have to write your own logic to handle schema changes, which is actually the hardest part. It's just a very complex problem to solve, and it often results in data inconsistencies. And then what happens is then the data teams inside companies, they end up spending most of their time debugging and fixing the pipeline instead of higher value projects that can really make a difference to the business. And what Artie does is we truly make it completely easy. So customers can go to our dashboard and in 10, 15 minutes, they have a CDC streaming pipeline set up. It's set it and forget it. We have automatic schema detection and we handle schema changes. We provide an analytics dashboard and monitoring out of the box. We alert them when things change so they're aware that something happened. If you think about it, it's everything data teams need to make sure that they have something reliable, fast, and consistent working.
Yeah, everybody knows that data is extremely important today, and it's incredible that Artie can offer so many different features to provide data teams the support that they need to do real-time analytics and data discovery. But maybe take us back to like the early days. Like, where did it start? How did it start with the ideation process? And what led you guys to actually take the plunge into entrepreneurship and decide, okay, no more working corporate 9 to 5s or 9 to 9s or whatever? Take us back to those days as well.
Yeah. So I myself never dreamed of being a startup founder. It just didn't seem like an appealing job to me, nor did I really spend much time thinking about it at all. For me, it sort of just like slowly happened. I started from like very early beginnings of just hearing my husband talk about this idea, what he was working on, the impact that it could have within the company. And after a few months, the realities of like what it could look like and everything just started to like form from an idea standpoint. And then it was just like, hey, why don't you build an MVP? Let's see if it works. If it does, maybe I'll help you get the company started, the boring stuff around incorporating and whatnot. But as this all slowly progressed, I just got more and more excited about what this company could do. Mm-hmm. And it is kind of a crazy jump. The way I justified the jump is, hey, I have friends that take 2 years off to do an MBA and they pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. I'll take 2 years. We'll try to build this startup. It's like a real life MBA experience and I don't have to pay for it. So it seemed like a decent argument at the time for taking a detour of 2 years.
That's a very interesting perspective of how you decided to take a break from your typical job. And I truly do believe that working gives you like the best kind of learning. But like, was there a specific moment or like any type of like feedback that you got that made you realize that, okay, now I want to just try, like, this is the moment that I decided to quit?
Yeah, I guess there wasn't really a specific moment. It just like slowly built up over time. I think seeing the MVP work kind of like solidified it, but I wouldn't say that that was like it wasn't like, hey, if the MVP works, that's it. Like we're jumping into this. It didn't feel like that at the moment.
Sure, that makes sense. And can you talk a little bit about any of the initial challenges or hurdles that you guys faced when you were trying to land your first design partner or customer, or like in the early days of inception of Artie?
Yeah, in terms of the idea and the product, we were lucky there in the sense that we knew what the problem was and how we wanted to solve it. Robin was the buyer, so we just knew what the MVP should look like. And we didn't need to go do a bunch of discovery, talk to a bunch of people, which is the other way to do it. But besides that, everything else was challenging. We're both first-time founders. One of the major hurdles in the beginning is like we literally didn't know what we should be doing and what it meant to sell. What does go-to-market even mean? So we had to figure all of that out slowly. For me in particular, the go-to-market and sales was like a completely new world. And it was all very overwhelming. I felt like imposter syndrome very early on. And it was like, just came from the fact that I was so unqualified for all of this. And I think back then I just took it one day at a time. I broke things down to real actionable steps that I could take on a daily basis. And I just focused on day by day until I understood what I was doing.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. And I'm so glad that you took the plunge. And like, how many months after you guys decided to start did you apply to YC? And can you talk about like how YC has helped you guys maybe develop and cultivate some of the learnings that makes you a better founder today, an operator?
Yeah. How many months? So we got into YC 3 months after we started the company. That was definitely a pivotal moment for us. Like I said, we're both first-time founders. So YC gave us access to years of startup knowledge that we got from our group partners. And then they also gave us a community of founders that we just like weren't exposed to before. And we actually didn't even realize how important it was to have this community of founders, even while we were going through YC. But since the batch ended, we actually still keep up with a bunch of our YC friends. We see them pretty often. And that's been very important for our mental health. Like, you're a lot less lonely. People are around you are going through the same problems, different variations of the same problems. But it's good to like struggle with a bunch of other people alongside you.
Yeah, trauma bonding must have got you guys much closer with your cohort class at YC, and that's great to hear that you have like a
Exactly.
good support system being first-time founders. Maybe talk a little bit more about also how you thought about scaling Artie from an idea to like a full-fledged business. Like, what are some of the concrete steps you were taking? How did you like cultivate a routine around like working a completely new job, which you didn't know, like charting your own path, essentially?
Yeah, scaling Artie from an idea. One thing I learned from YC, and it's not really a really structured way to do things, but one thing I learned from YC is that scaling is one of those problems that like you earn the right to deal with. And what I really mean is like you basically just deal with a problem when it becomes a problem. From the first week we got set up, I didn't think about setting up a payment processor and like invoicing software. We were just, okay, let's just build the product that's usable and then let's figure out how to like talk to people. When we signed our first customer, then we were like, oh, wait, we should probably get something so that we can like send invoices to people. And when we hired our first employee, we were like, oh, wait, actually, we need a way to pay him. Let's set up like payroll. So really like not doing things until we absolutely have to is something that we still do today.
And can you talk a little bit about like any marketing strategies? So you run a B2B business. Maybe for our audience, talk about like how B2B businesses market to get more customers on board, and how have you thought about like expanding within your existing customer base as well?
Yeah, so we're very new to marketing. For the first year and a half, we've only been focused on like founder-led sales, which is really just the founder doing whatever they can to get to customers, to talk to as many people as possible, to build your initial set of like 10, 20 or so like customers. Over the past couple of months, we've started focusing on marketing, and here it was again, like starting from ground zero, not really understand like what it meant or like what marketing should look like. And where we landed on, at least, is something that resonates with us and also with the technical like developer people is content marketing. And we're following the same playbook of what I would call like founder-led content marketing. And what that strategy looks like is probably just a bunch of like really unscalable things until we figure out a more repeatable model. And honestly, like we have no idea what that would look like. We're like still very new to that part of it.
That makes sense. And it's aligned with your strategy to only focus on things once you really ultimately have to do them. If this ad hoc strategy is working for you right now, makes sense to.
Yeah. And it's like, we don't know what's going to work in a repeatable way. So there's no need to think about if this works, how is this scalable? Like when we get there, then we earn the right to deal with that problem.
That makes sense. And is that a way you think about running experiments as well? Like as a founder, like what are the kinds of experiments that you're running on like a day-to-day, month-to-month basis to essentially understand what's working for the company, what's not working for the company? Could you talk more about that?
Yeah, I would say a lot of it has to do with intuition. The experiments that you can run as a startup, you're unable to do real A/B testing because you're never going to be able to run it at enough scale to get true statistical significance. So whatever you experiment on, there's a layer of like intuition to it. And the only way to test things with sales and marketing when only the founders are running those motions is you just try it. Let's say I want to change the format of how I actually run sales calls. I try it on the next 5, see what happens. Did it feel like it got better? Did it feel like it got worse? Why? So it's like not very scientific. If I think a certain type of content is going to do better, the only way to know is to write something up and put it out there. and see how it performs. That's how experiments work here.
That's awesome. And can you talk a little bit about how your background in equity research and investing has influenced your approach to funding and fundraising for Artie?
Yeah, I think it was helpful to have a bit of perspective of what it's like to be sitting on the other side of the table and have a understanding of how investors think about the market, how they think about go-to-market strategy, and etc. However, I have to say that public software investing and VCs investing in like very early stages have completely different strategies and ways of thinking about investing. That part didn't really translate over at all. I had to pretty much learn from scratch about how VCs see the world, and YC was actually a very big help here as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. Could you maybe tell us what is like the thing that investors get most wrong about like go-to-market strategies or like startup like operations that you think that you were completely surprised when you went on the other side of the table to becoming an operator from an investor?
I think one thing that, and this is not all investors, but I think investors like repeatability. So you try to find whatever sense of repeatability you can have, and then you can actually like project that out or have a good sense of what it looked like in 6 months or 12 months or in like 10 years. In the same sense as startups don't have, like at least seed stage startups, pre-seed startups just really don't have any of that. And it's funny because the way of thinking of like a founder, like I said, they just haven't earned the right for thinking about that problem. It's interesting to see like the dichotomy of founders are thinking, how is the next like 2-3 days going to go? How is the next week going to go? And then VCs thinking of how would this become scalable long term? There's a distinction, and I think founders should actually spend time thinking about like, hey, if this becomes successful, how does this scale? But also don't spend too much time on that because you might not even get there.
That makes sense. And any advice you would give aspiring entrepreneurs who are seeking investments for their startup right now?
I would say be careful who you take advice from. Advice is cheap and you'll get lots of it. And I think it's really important to think about whether the person giving you that particular piece of advice is qualified. And then secondarily, like what could their motivations be? I think the worst thing that someone, a potential like a founder could do is you have an idea, you go through all these investment meetings, and then all of a sudden you change your product strategy or you pivot or you do something drastic for your company because of something that an investor said to you. Definitely don't do that. You're going to get a lot of rejections, and fundraising is painful even for very successful rounds. One piece of advice that I actually got from YC is like, hey, while you're fundraising, listen to the no, but don't listen to the why. And that was actually super important to hear.
That's interesting advice. What would you say is the worst piece of advice you've gotten while you've been?
I honestly can't remember at this moment.
That's cool. And as Artie is beginning to scale, how are you thinking about like building out your team? What are you looking in terms of qualities in your potential team members, and how are you fostering the culture of the company in these early days?
Yeah, this may not come as a surprise, but we also only hire when that person or that role is what we feel is limiting growth. We don't hire unless I am doing like 2 full-time jobs. And then it's okay, let's split this into like 2 people doing 2 full-time jobs. And so unless that happens, we don't hire people. In terms of what qualities we look for, I think in the very early days, it's for us at least, we think it's talent and determination over experience. The early stages of building a startup is really tough. You want people that will essentially, they will run through walls and do whatever it takes to get something done. And when things don't work out or they just don't get defeated and they figure out, okay, what is the next wall that I can run through to figure it out? And you asked a question about like how are you thinking about company culture? Making sure that we have a defined company culture and have a culture where our early employees have a hand in creating was really important to me. And partially because it's like I know that in the early days it's really easy to have good culture because it's just a function of like the people that you hire and what's important to the founders. But as a company grows, that quickly goes away if you're not actually very mindful of it. So we actually came up with ours a couple of months ago during the offsite with our whole team. And we share this document with every candidate now during the interview process.
Mm-hmm. If you had to surmise like the culture of Artie in 3 words, what would you say?
That is tough. I don't think I can summarize it in 3 words.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, that's great to hear. And congrats on expanding the team because I mean, as a founder, really like letting go and delegating is like a big next step. So that's incredible to hear that you've reached that stage as well. Shifting gears a little onto like innovation with all of the advancements in technology with generative AI and all of these other factors in the market, can you talk about how you ensure that Artie is remaining innovative and being able to support its customers wherever it's required?
I think the most important is we need to stay curious. We need to stay open to trying new things over time. We need to continue to talk to our customers so we really understand what the problem is that they have and what is our customers, like what are the jobs to be done so that we can build solutions that solve their problems. And actually, this company culture actually ties into this a little bit, but maintaining a startup mentality and aiming to get like 1% better every day are 2 key values that are part of our company culture. I think that can be like really powerful. Like if we can maintain both of these, even when we're say like 1,000-person company, that helps us constantly improve and stay ahead.
Yeah, it's the power of compounding. Like everything you do 1% of 1%, and then so the rest is history.
I think I did the calculation. If you do 1% better every day in a year, it's like 38 times better than when you started.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. And can you tell us a little bit about any trends that you think in the tech industry are going to be significant on the data capture and streaming processes over the next few years?
Yeah, it's hard to ignore AI's impact on the world already. As AI continues to develop, I think the role of data only becomes more important, especially when you think about having high quality and reliable data replication. So I think that's going to have a big impact on the data space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just building off of that with like a lot of AI generated content, do you think that that's going to increase costs for companies when they're trying to store? Like, what do you think are the implications for Artie specifically as like fake data, synthetic data is being generated across these companies? Like, how do they maintain data integrity? Is that an area that Artie is operating in currently? Do you envision?
We don't touch any of that today, but hypothetically, if more synthetic data is generated to train models or, I don't know, run experiments or something like that. And in general, I think like the more data means like data moves around a lot more. And that's where we will play a part.
Got it. And maybe tell us about your vision for the future of Artie. Where do you see the company in the next 5 years?
We want to be known as the highest quality data replication solution, specifically for like business critical use cases. And these are use cases where low latency and data consistency really matters. And we don't want to just stop there. Like we're building a platform for data engineers and data teams. Like I said, we're constantly thinking about what are the other data engineering jobs to be done that we can help with and building on top of what we already offer to our customers.
Yeah, I read somewhere that 75% of jobs that are going to be there in 2040 don't even exist today, which I thought was incredible and like very, very interesting to think about. So it would be interesting to see which jobs get created with AI and also with data streaming as it becomes more common within larger organizations and monitoring as well.
I would imagine that the jobs that go away are the jobs that like people likely don't want to be doing in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Jobs are like very repetitive that can be automated away. So I think it's probably a good thing. And then people will graduate to better jobs, better roles. That's how I think about it anyway.
Awesome. Yeah, hopefully. My newhat question is, what would be the advice you would give to anyone who's looking to start their own tech company?
I would say just try it. I think if you think too hard or like make a list of like pro and cons, you'll find a million reasons why you're not ready for it, you're not qualified, it's not a good idea. I think you'll never truly be ready to be a founder. It's just like too unlike any other job out there for you to like quote unquote like prepare for. Just try it and you'll learn a lot and it'll be a really fun and exciting experience.
And what's the best book you've read this year? If you had time to read a book or podcast or any type of content that you've consumed in the last year.
Yeah, I really liked this one book called Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. That was really fun to read. Another book that I've read that was really helpful for me coming from the financial world to the data space is this book that was called Fundamentals of Data Engineering. And it is interestingly one of these textbooks that is not boring at all to read.
That's interesting. And what is maybe you should talk to someone about?
It's fictional. It's just fun. It's talking about the point of view of a therapist, talking to like many different types of patients. It's just like really interesting to think about it from her point of view.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say is your wildest bet about the tech industry in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think the only thing I'm confident is about that I have no clue what it would look like in 5 to 10 years, especially with the rapid development of AI. I think that like blew everyone else away. And I think that's only going to continue.
Yeah. And finally, what's the best career advice you've ever received?
It's actually something that I have written down on a sticky, and I have a long list of stuff I've written down on stickies, but this one in particular, it's really focused on the problem and never ever on the solution. It just reminds me to always think from first principles and really determine like the basic elements that make up the problem and approach everything from that sense. Like when I'm talking to customers, when I do check-ins, it's always thinking about the problem and like the solution's always secondary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, about framing the issue at hand, and maybe that'll give you creative solutions for whatever problem you're dealing with. But well, Jacqueline, that's all the questions that I had for today. Thank you so much. It's so incredible to see someone from finance take a total pivot and go into entrepreneurship. And we're all super excited for Artie, and we'll be closely watching your journey. And good luck for scaling it forward. And thank you for joining us today on Wharton TED Talks.
Thank you so much.